is this that cometh from Edom, with thy garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, conquering in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fats? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and the blood shall be...
Good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing in the book of Isaiah. Today we're in chapter 60. We're continuing at verse 13. But of course, as always, at least since not too long ago, we're going to read through the chapter to pick up the whole context. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about, and see, all they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged. Because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee, and the forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. The multitude of camels shall cover thee, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah. All they from Sheba shall come, they shall bring gold and incense, and they shall show forth the praises of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto thee. The rams of Nebaioth shall minister unto thee. They shall come up with acceptance upon my altar, and I will glorify the house of my glory. Who are these that fly as a cloud, and as the doves to their windows? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the strips of Tarshish... The ships of Tarshish first. Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far. Their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls. And the kings and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Okay. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shalt suck the breast of kings. And thou shalt know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make thy officers peace, and thy exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy God thy glory. Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall all inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time. And then it moves into this messianic passage. But, I feel this is very messianic, though it's referring to the city itself, right? It definitely has some very messianic things. The whole bowing, every knee shall bow to Christ, every tongue shall confess, And it makes me think, because as he will be king, not just of the world, but especially of Israel. I just realized how stupid my hair looks today. Oh well. Also of Israel. And there was something I thought, it isn't particularly critical, but I was like, I didn't really talk about thy heart shall fear and be enlarged. Because it almost struck me as a new verse. Because I'm like, I don't remember discussing that at all. Sometimes I go through it kind of quickly. But I remember doing the forces of the Gentiles. But it's not a difficult concept. The idea of heart enlargement, we have you ever heard of the idea of your heart swells? It's that feeling of your heart when you feel a certain amount of pleasure or joy. You can feel it in your chest, like rising, like a feeling like something's rising. I guess I did a little better here. There we go. That looks just as stupid, but at least more neat. So that's what that's referring to. That feeling of just the good feelings. I think. Thou shalt see and flow together. That's a weird concept. Actually, I want to look at that real quick before we go to verse 13. Flow together. I'm just curious what that is. Oh, look it. wait. I just love it when I look into Bible Hub and this is what I find. It's like, thou shalt see. It really makes me feel like some sort of there's a problem with this word. It's because we have numbers here. Why? I don't know. My Bible doesn't usually look like that, but here today it does. Aha. And the quick definition seems to work. It's nahar. Stream. Flow together. Sure. It's a stream. To flow or stream. You shall all flow in stream and your heart will be enlarged. To be cheerful. A primitive verb to sparkle, that is figuratively to be cheerful. Hence from the sheen of a running stream to flow. So this word is, more like be encouraged. Literally means to flow, but in Hebrew, figuratively, it means to be joyful or cheerful. You will see, and you will be cheered up by it. Your heart shall be enlarged. Obviously, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted to you. Obviously, the proper emotional response is joy and cheerfulness and pleasure. So that's what that means. Okay, because that troubled me that I didn't say a word about it. And it's kind of a weird clause. And there was one more that I thought as I was reading. I'm like, did I say anything about that? Just the ships of Tarshish, but I don't think I need it. We talked about the ships of Tarshish. They were it's kind of like the notable trading ships of that time and place. The ships, Solomon has ships of Tarshish. If we could only have ships of Tarshish bringing these goods, it was trade. And it represents wealth, but also means. If your children are going to come, the ships of Tarshish will bring something this time, not spices or gold, but your children. The sons also of them that afflicted thee. I'm sorry, verse 13 is where we read the chapter, right? Yeah. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make my the place of my feet glorious. The place of my feet. Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. And the idea is he puts his feet in his sanctuary. It's just a kind of a symbolic thing, because obviously God is not, in the Old Testament, certainly embodied and walking around in his feet, in bare feet in the temple. But it does, but the Lord, he does walk among us. As he said in the law. There's an interesting law in the Old Testament where they had to have a shovel on the end. They had to have a little shovel, because when they would go to ease themselves abroad, which means to take a poop, they were required to bury it right away, because the Lord God walketh among you. And therefore he wanted their camp to be clean, because he didn't want to step in their excrement. That, not that he would, but the point is, pick up your poop. God walks among us. So, God, there is a certain amount of, I don't know how I'd characterize that, but I always thought that was interesting. There's a lot of good reasons to not leave excrement around, obviously, because of disease and the obvious problems. Anyways. So the fir tree, the pine tree, the box, the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee. Lebanon is where Solomon, when he built his temple, he sent to King Hiram of Tyre, and they had cedars of Lebanon brought down, because Lebanon was a woody, region at that time. I don't know exactly what it's like now. But they were great cedar trees growing up in Lebanon, and that's from which they would fetch their wood. And so for the temple and such, that's what it's referring to: the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box tree, to beautify the place of my sanctuary, because we're going to have wood, because the house was made of cedar. There was all kinds of wood overlaid with gold in the temple, and so that's referring to the things. We're gonna import all that wood and stuff again for the sanctuary, for the temple. We're gonna bring it on down. All that's gonna come together. Now, of course, in a symbolic sense, Ezekiel 31 says, talking about take up this lamentation against the Son of Man. I forgot exactly how it starts, but it's against Pharaoh. I forgot how it starts exactly. Son of man. I'm trying to remember how that opening spoken part goes. Against Pharaoh and his multitude. Whatever. But in that case, he says, behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon with fair branches. And then he compares the Assyrian, though it might be actually, the word there might not be Assyrian, by the way. It might be box tree. But still, it tells the idea of, you have a person exalting. It's an Antichrist passage, basically, is the most important part of that. It's whoever refers to, literally, it refers to Antichrist and Satan also, ultimately. And in that comparison, they're all the trees. There were all these different trees. It's not just him, but he exalts himself above all the tops of the trees. And the trees symbolically refer to leaders and kings and such. And they already referred to the kings coming. So here I would not expect that symbolic meaning to have much relevance. But I'm mentioning it just because, so you don't think I didn't even consider it. Because I did consider it, but I don't really think it's relevant here. As far as this is talking about just literal trees. The sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee. All they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion, the Holy One of Israel. That reminds me of the place in Revelation chapter 2 and 3 where it says, I will make them that are of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie, to worship before your feet. Whatever one could say, people assume, not people, but that passage talks about people who are Jews and are not. And when I was young, I was taught that meant that all Jews are not Jews. But that's not the right interpretation. All people who say they are Jews are lying. No, that doesn't mean that. For one, it doesn't say they're deceived. It says they're lying. Because believe me, the Jews believe they're Jews. They don't think they're something else. All right. But yeah, when every knee shall bow to Christ, every tongue shall confess, and he will be in Mount Zion. And they will come bending before the city of the Lord, the Mount Zion. They're not worshiping the city itself, but the king who reigns there. And of course, they do bow before the city, obviously, because it is the Lord who inhabits it. They're bowing to the Lord, and therefore they bow to the city. They bow to the Lord, and therefore they bow to you, because you are God's servant standing with him. And he said, he that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. It's one of the last things it says in chapter 3 of Revelation. So they bend their knee to Christ, but by extension to the city and to the people thereof, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shalt suck the breast of kings, and shalt know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior, and thy Redeemer, the Mighty One of Jacob. We discussed this last time a little bit. Well, I mentioned in passing when we started, because the idea of, sucking the breast of kings, that's kind of an odd thing, isn't it? Wouldn't it be suck the breast of queens? No, it's suck the breast of kings, because it's symbolic. It's a metaphor. Men don't have breasts, and kings don't have breasts. But they do have means. The idea of the wealth of kings, they have nourishment. They can nourish people. They can give nourishment. And that's the idea, is that kings would come forth. Suck the milk of the Gentiles. Thou shalt suck the breast of kings. It's like taking, what is a child? The child takes comfort in its mother's milk. And nourishment and sustenance. So that's the idea, is that the Gentiles will nourish and sustain Zion and the Jews and Israel. And again, I'm not sure where to put believers. As far as, Isaiah has only in mind Israel. But from the New Testament, we know. They say, I will call you the planting of the Lord and all that. And where is it? Oh, right here, actually. Oh, there, the branch of my planting, right? Well, let me show you something in the New Testament I've referred to a couple times. We'll go to, where is it? I'm just going to find it by using words. Like, wrong keyboard. Natural. The natural should be good enough. Only 14 verses, but I want something from Paul, so it's going to be like Corinth. It's more like Romans, right? Romans 11. Yeah, Romans 11. It's a concept. For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my office. If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? If the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root be holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, wert grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. See, Paul still sees himself as a Jew. He never stopped. But he opened it to the Gentiles and said, Gentiles, come in. And he looked at the casting off of the Jews not as them being, like, not that he was leaving, but they were being broken off. And the Gentiles being grafted in. Not all the Jews, again, because Paul's still a Jew, and there's lots of Jews with him, and lots of Jews converted to Christianity. I mean, it's, they say, people say, why don't the Jews? It's like, because the ones who convert get separated. So you always have the leftover unbelieving ones. They're always there until God absolutely saves all Israel, and maybe at the end times, that's going to be the case. But we are the branches that are grafted in. Important concept here. Boast not against the branches. I remember when I was describing the anti-Jew doctrine that I was brought up in, as a young man. I remember that's what my pastor at the time, Mark Nutting, he's like, oh, I don't know, that sounds pretty dangerous, like boast not against the branches, man. Yeah. Careful what you say about the Jews. I'm careful. I'm not that. I'll be critical of, like, the government of Israel, like their horrible vaccine plans and stuff like that. I mean, that's fine. And they're even a conservative government. There's all kinds of conservative governments being just as bad as any. It's not limited. They've all gone insane with science. They've all lost their minds. But I'll criticize the Jewish government if they do something I don't like. I'll criticize the founding of Israel. I will. But Israel has a right. There should be in Israel. The Jews need a safe place to live. I definitely, I'm not critical of them trying to establish a homeland for themselves. Not at all. But the way they went about it, you can see why they created animosity. Because I remember learning that the Jews bought the land. Like they went in and they bought the land that they occupied, they bought. Now the Arabs, some of them will say, well, they stole it. But they didn't. They bought it. They bought a lot of land. But the problem is the way that it was done, and if I'm wrong, someone can correct me at some point, because this is what I learned subsequent. It could be false. And so take it with a certain, but what I learned and read was that the land, they bought the land like from the rich landowners who owned all kinds of land, because it was remember, it was originally under the Turkish rule, and it was an autocratic state. So you have a king owned all the land at some point in there. I think the king of Jordan, but then there would be other princes, and so it was owned by these rich people who were nowhere near it. And the tenants on the land, which were not very many, because Israel was not really a populated zone. Let's say a highly populated zone. There were people there, of course. But the people that were there, they bought the land out from under them and then kicked them off the land. And so obviously that's not exactly, they bought the land from the rich thing, and then it's like you're renting the land. You're paying your rent, and you're paying your 50 whatever a month, right? But then someone from the West, a Jew from Europe, may come in and then offer a lot more money for that land because they want it because it's Israel, And so then you can't match that offer or do nothing. And you may have lived there your whole life, but then they kick them out. And so we own it now. We bought the land. And, and that's how it went, from what I understand. And so that's not really clean, It's sort of like a little bit dirty there, I would say. I mean, legal and I was about to say fair, but I wouldn't exactly say fair, but legal for sure. They legally obtained the land. They did not steal it. But you can see why people might come to resent that. Like it'd be like if the Indians came back and said that my land was their sacred ancient place, and they wanted to get it, and I said no. And then they went to the bank and offered them $1 million for my house. And then just came, we bought it, and they kicked me out. You know, I can't afford that price. So I'll be critical in that sense, but, you know, I'm not anti-Jew. I hate that stuff, and it's foolish. Don't go against God's people. I mean, you can go against what they're doing. I'm just like the prophets. The prophets spoke against God's people. I'll speak against God's people, against the Jews, against the Gentiles, against the Christians, all of them, in the sense that they're doing wrong. But just to categorically hate people because they belong to a certain group is wicked, and you shouldn't do it. I hate all the Jews. That's absolutely wrong. Because it's like, people have to be judged on an individual basis. You know, except in war, when you just shoot people who are wearing the other uniform. That's why war is a wicked evil. So you shall be called, they shall inherit the land forever. They shall be all righteous. You know, they inherit the land. They're going to be righteous. They'll be the branch of my planting. And we talked about the branches. That's a metaphor that's used very often in the scriptures. In fact, Christ himself is called the branch. Like, he is the branch. We are the branch in this less sense, not as we are the branches of his planting, the work of his hands in that sense, the garden of the Lord, his work, that I may be glorified. Because the point is that in that when we follow the Lord and he does his work in us and it fulfills, you know, what he promised, you know, when we become all righteous, God is glorified because his word is true. Because because the things he said would come to pass, because his mercy endures forever. Because it does. Upon those he shows mercy, his mercy endures forever. But on those who have his wrath, he will make an utter end of them. Did I really go that fast? No. I might as well skip that. Yeah, I did. I totally skipped that. Wait, how did I get done that? Oh, because I wanted to talk about the branch. I skipped that. I was like, whoa. How do we get to the end of the chapter? I'm like, man, I thought I had a good hour to, half hour to go yet. Okay. The box is, the tree references also makes me think of the branches and the planting. Because there is a metaphorical sense in which God refers to people as trees. In fact, when Jesus, is an interesting passage where Jesus heals a man who's blind, making mud on his eyes, right? And he says, I see men as trees walking, which is an interesting thing. But I think that, of course, it just means I can't tell the difference between people and trees because I still can't see very well. They shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. They shall call thee the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One. That's because I was saying again, the Jews are not to be categorically despised because God still has a plan for them. He's still going to call his own out of Israel. I'm not under any illusion that everyone that calls themselves a Jew, one, is a Jew, two, is being faithful to the covenant or will be redeemed. Because there are a lot of wicked men out there, Jew and Gentile alike. And people, a lot of times, there are people who focus on Jews. They're watching them and noting their activity. And so the evil being done in the name of Jewishness is documented. But you can't paint the whole people with such a broad brush. I remember Arnold Murray. He was my anti-Semitic original teacher, And the funny thing is, I remember he said, you'll never see a Jew working with their hands. He said, he said Kenite, of course. He didn't believe, he had this basic, very strict rule. He never used the word Jews to refer to the actual Jews. He always referred to Jews as Kenites because he did not believe that they were Jews. Like, not one of them, by the way. They were all Kenites. And I have a documentation on that and my website, oraclesofgod.org, if you go to the Shepherd's Chapel page, which is found through, I think if you go to the doctrine page, because I kind of hit it. I don't know why. I kind of hit it. If you go to the doctrine page, there we go. Doctrine, and you scroll down. Unfortunately, there's no face on this page. Oh, it's not doctrine. Is it studies? Notice I don't even have it on the doctrine page. I have trouble finding this sometimes. Studies, maybe. And all the way at the bottom, bring... That's funny. I don't even know where my own Shepherd's Chapel page is anymore. Questions, maybe? The question page. I bet I went right by it right away already. But I think it definitely shows up here. Shepherd's Chapel. It's under questions. Now, why was I looking for this? Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. Topical indexes. Kenite, serpent seed. There you go. But the reason I brought him up, and why was I even here? Finally, I was looking for it, made me kind of forget. Oh, yeah, I documented in this thing here. Let's see. Why is my page looks all screwed up, doesn't it? Special Article 3. Whatever. Yeah, well, that's the first Article 3, yeah. Why do I have another? This is... I think people known as the Jews, the Kenites? Yep. And this explains how he says basically they're all Kenites. They're all sons of Satan. He doesn't make much room at all for them to be anything else. And this page will definitely document that, as he likes to say. Okay, but as he said, the reason I brought that up, why did I bring that up? Oh boy, that's way too far in the passage. Wait a second. Let's get that straight now. We don't want to be all down there. We're up here. The fire ponds just bending to the okay. I really would like to remember why I was going to talk about that, because I thought I had a good point there. Well, I was taught to think of them all as sons of Satan, but there are sons of Satan. Yeah, I mean, but it's not a literal thing. There are people who call themselves Jews who are evil. I know, because they were there in the Old Testament, and the Old Testament says so, that there are men who are called Jews who are evil. Oh well. You know, and in that sense, God does not regard them as Jews. He casts them out of his house, just as he cut off Jews from his kingdom in the Old Testament. So also the Jews that regard the Lord not, that do not, you know, I think that someone who's a Jew who's blind but who follows Yahweh and tries to adhere to the law but does not, they can't hear the gospel because God does not open their ears. You know, they are beloved for the Father's sake. You have to be conscious of the fact that, you know, you can't just paint them with a broad brush. No one should be painted with a broad brush. No group of people, because every man has to stand on his own individual basis. Judging people by just their whole race is not, you know, and that's the thing in this. It's like Jacob is at one time supposed to, you know, through him the whole world's going to be blessed. But also Jacob is like this horrible person who worships idols and does all these abominations. So there's this conflict. And we also have that conflict internally. No man can serve two masters. We have to serve the Lord Christ. We cannot serve sin. We cannot serve God and mammon. We must serve him only. But still, though we have the conflict in us, outside of us in the world, we see the conflict, and it's in more stark terms. We have people who are won over to evil. You know, evil has completely consumed them. and you will know that I am thy Savior and thy Redeemer. So the milk of the Gentiles, the whole point of that was, I don't know where to put us. Are we the Gentiles that are giving the Jews milk? Or are we grafted in, meaning in a New Testament mindset, we consider ourselves part of the commonwealth of Israel, of the true Israel, the Israel of God, which is Jew and Gentile in one body, the church. That doesn't mean that the other people don't, there's not something that God has nothing to do with them or he doesn't recognize them, but they are not, they're blind. Like blindness has happened to Israel. That's what Paul said. Like I said, if they're not given over to evil, then they're blind. If they're given over to evil, then they're just evil. And they may be blind too, but God has blinded them and, allowed them to do these things, perhaps to condemn them. Because not all get the same mercy that Paul the Apostle got, where you're persecuting the church and suddenly God appears to you and says, hey, I want to bring you over on the other side. It's not exactly the way he said it, but, For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver. The best way I know to teach this is to go to the New Testament, like this, and to show the passage that in the New Testament that really feels like it fits in with this. I like it. Let's see. I think it's like just works burned. Ba-ba-da. There's actually 4 verses with burned and works in it. Wow, I didn't get it right. Manifest? I wonder how many times manifest occurs. 50. It's going to be kind of hard to find that way. But I'm thinking early in the New Testament, like Romans or Corinthians. I forgot which one it's in. It was 1 Corinthians, 3:13. Oh yeah, that verse seems so familiar now. The number. That's what I get for not memorizing where things are. Just memorize that they exist. That's because here's the thing. That's good enough. If I sat here and I could trot out every verse, you'd be like, I'll never learn the Bible. But you can hear me just quoting things that you probably do know exist. For we are laborers together with God. Ye are God's husbandry. Ye are God's building. According to the grace of God which is given unto me, as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive reward. If any man's work shall be burned, I see, a work burned, not works, work. He shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. And then he goes on to talk about how we are the temple of God. Again, these are concepts we've been talking about, assuming you understand. His temple will be built with cedars of Lebanon. Which temple you are. It'll be beautified, yes, with the cedars of Lebanon, but that also means that God will look outside of his land to bring in those who will beautify his thing. God, like it says of Cornelius, the centurion, when Peter went to greet him after the Lord had commanded him and showed him a dream to confirm it, he said, now God has shown me that I should not call any man common. And that in every nation, those that fear God and do righteousness are received. I think that was the word. It wasn't received. What is the word exactly there? Find. I have to tell you spell Cornelius. No, it isn't. Let's just go with centurion. I know it's like Acts 8 or something. No, it's Acts 10. Cornelius. Cornelius, okay. So now named Cornelius, but when I'm not going to read the whole story. But his end conclusion, what was it, the last verse? When the Holy Ghost, especially when he went to visit him and the Holy Ghost fell on them. And, can any man forbid water? Wait, where is it? I think it was actually just before they received the Holy Spirit, actually. Because then they got baptized. Oh, yes, here we go. But in every nation, he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. That was a big revelation for Peter, because he was a Jew, and he did not have any fondness or love for the Gentiles. Certainly not for the Romans. Roman centurion was a representative. I mean, you got to understand, because Cornelius was a Roman centurion. You know what I mean? He was over 100, he was basically like a sergeant over 100 men. That means he was the person who ordered and gave commands. He's like an officer of the Romans, the hated Romans who lorded over us. He wasn't just some soldier. He was one that commanded. And whether or not he was just or not wouldn't matter. It's just what he represented. And so Peter would have no love for this man. Not automatically. But then, Cornelius was a good man. That goes into that in Acts 10. You can read about that. But back to Isaiah here. I do like this. For brass, I will bring gold. That's good. That's really good. Because I don't fancy anything I do to be gold quality. It's nice to know that my woody works, my garbage Bible study, my poor performance and everything, that God will look at that and say, it's only iron, but that's silver to me. And it's only brass, but to me that's gold. God's not stupid. If I bring something and say, look at this is just solid gold. But it's not. It's actually just brass. I don't know what it is. This is probably actually gold, actually. It's some sort of gold. But whatever. But let's say you have something that's God would know for sure if this is gold or brass. And he does. I don't know. I don't see any mark on it. It's just sitting over here. It's like a locket. But the idea is that, God looks at our works. He knows our frame. And he gives us greater credit than we deserve. You know what I mean? We are not, I write songs for the Lord. And I want to write good songs and the best I can. But it's the best I can is not the best the Lord could do. It's not the best in the world. But for But for our love of him, for whatever reason, he exchanges, for brass, I give gold, for silver, for iron, silver, for wood, brass, for stones, iron. That always makes me think of that 1 Corinthians chapter 3 passage, What kind of works are we bringing forth to God? I'm bringing the best I can, but I know it's not good enough. I know it's not good enough. The best I can is not good enough for God. Because I can't measure up. I'll never measure up. But thankfully, God does not require that of us. He does not need us to measure up to his level of competency, his level of excellency, his glory. Not on our own, certainly. If he were to expect such of us, he would give us the power. He expects of us such as power as he's given us. And inasmuch as, it's it may only be brass, but it was the best I could do. And so God says, well, that's gold. Your best effort is gold. And your second best effort is silver. And that's comforting. It should be comforting. I mean, God knows I'd really rather just bring him gold and not have to have him give me the, what would you call it? What do they call that? When they, give me a weighted GPA. A weight, that's not what I was saying. I was going to say when they do that for kids, social promotion. I can't remember the right word. Like when people get, where it's like, it's like I'm retarded or something. And God is just saying, oh, very good, Paul, patting me on the head. That's fine if he wants to do it that way. I can't be more than I am. I can't. I'd like to be more than I am. I strive to be more than I am, but it's like where I am right now, I can't really, this is as far as I've gotten. I've only gotten so far. After so long, I'd like to be farther. I'd like to be better for so long, after so long. But we can only do as much as God has given us. We can only do with what the power we have. If we're faithful, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in that which is greatest. And the Lord, if he, that's the thing. It's like when he says, you've been faithful over the 10 talents, I will put you over 10 cities. You've been faithful in bringing forth brass, I will give you gold. Because God is generous like that. And he's good like that. So that shows how God favors us. He gives us like this weighted result where our meager efforts are regarded as great. And that is that's very gracious of God to do. I will also make the officers peace and then exactors righteousness. Exactors, I believe that'd be like the taxers. Let's look at it. Okay. All right. Exactors, huh? It's going to be weird if it's like... yeah, it's funny. I think this word is also sometimes translated extortioners. Or not translated. Taskmasters, oppressors. Yeah, oppressor. I think I translated extortioner at some point when in a song. For the extortioner is at an end. Oh, yeah. Foreign oppressor, tyrant, exactor of tribute. A primitive verb to drive, by implication to tax, harass, tyrannize. Now, obviously, tax. We have the word tax, right? Well, we will use the word tax sometimes like, oh, this is such a taxing task. Tax has a very negative connotation, but actually it's kind of a neutral word. But of course, it's a neutral word that tends towards the negative. There's no positive taxing. You know what I mean? Tax, harass, tyrannize. It's like tax is kind of like, okay, we're going to collect your taxes. It's like, oh, I don't like paying taxes, but okay, here you go. Someone just taking my money for some good purpose, hopefully. And instead, but then you get down, it doesn't go it doesn't get more positive than that. That's the most positive version of this idea. And then it becomes a taskmaster. It can mean to harass or tyrannize. Press, drive to work. So again, in this sense, the most positive way I could say, maybe like instead of taskmaster, like your supervisor. Or those who, direct and lead you in your work. Where have I? Oh, let's just go back to the text. I don't need that. Okay, so we got the exactors. Let's look at officers too. Hold on, sorry. Let's go back and look at officers. All right. Pukda. Pekuda. Okay. Pakuda, oversight, mustering. Oh, this is your overseers. Okay, well, so much for my liking that word as a translation of exactors. Overseer, abstract or concrete. Oversight, charge. And in fact, see here, Isaiah 60 verse 17, overseer. That's how it's being used. That's using the Brown Driver Briggs, which is the lexicon, which shows, again, the different forms and where they are used. I don't know much about the qual perfect. I can't even tell you what that means. Well, I can tell you what it means. It's referring to, like, we have the present perfect form of certain verbs. Like where a perfect usually in language means a completed thing. Like, say, I went to this. I forget how you do it. I am going to the store. Like when you say I'm going to school. I believe that's a present perfect. Whatever. See, I don't know. In Hebrew, I have no idea how that it works. Participle, masculine, plural, masculine, singular. Okay, whatever. To press, drive to work. Exact with accusative. All I really do when I look through these, I'm looking for Isaiah 60:17, which is right down there. See it? So, in this verse, it's being used in the participle sense or whatever. It means a driver or taskmaster. The ass driver. That's funny. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for thinking that's funny. Okay, back we go to the text. So, overseer and taskmasters. So those who lead you to your tasks will be righteous. That's hard to understand because we're used to taskmaster being a purely negative thing, right? But it is, and again, what we're talking about a city. Those who are officers and administrators of the city will be righteous and peaceful, as opposed to the way they could be, which is violent and extortionary. A lot of times, the problem is, the reason tax collectors were hated so much, like on an individual level in the ancient times, was because they weren't paid. So they would overtax you. They were expected to get their pay by overtaxing you. And so people kind of knew this. It's not like it doesn't still go on. I mean, all our taxes pay for a lot of government employees. I mean, all of them. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's changed. It's just, it's not on a personal, it's become so mechanized. So, it's not there's no person present that you could look at. Unless you get like audited, then you can see an IRS agent come to your home. But I've been on the phone with a number of IRS agents over the years. They're just regular people and very nice and pleasant and easy to deal with. As far as, actually, that's my experience because I've always had actually a lot of positive experiences with the tax. Because there have been times when they made mistakes on my return. Like I've had to call them out on mistakes and stuff. And as long as you have the proof, they're very gracious about it. I haven't gotten on. I know it can be really bad. And also that some people, it's just like the police. Some people are in there because they want to do good and they want to enforce the law and keep peace and protect people. And that's why a lot of people become police officers. But some people believe it because they're kind of like, some people become police officers because they kind of like the power and they like to dominate people. And they're kind of jerks. I mean, there's that kind of cop too. I know someone who got into security guard and he's into bondage and sadomasochism. And it's no surprise why he got... And the reason I know he's into that is because he wanted to tell people. I think I mentioned this before. I don't like to... I never ask people about like their bedroom lives. But some people want to announce it to everybody. And it makes sense that they would want to announce that. I mean, just like the gays want to announce their identity. I'm gay, look at me, I was thinking how these things I do could be taken out of context. It's funny. But, right, I'm gay, look at me, and oh, I hate God, like, and that kind of stuff. the gays are all out announcing their identity, and it's based on their sexuality. So then we have some guy who's a sadomasochist. He wants everyone to celebrate him. And why not? I mean, I know why not, because it's all an abomination. But they don't know why not. Why would a sadomasochist has got to be scratching his head, like looking at the gay people and saying, oh, why do they get special status and all this? And I get nothing. I get nothing. You know, they get no special status, no parades, no sadomasochistic pride day, you know? Why not? Why not celebrate all the lifestyles, all the identities? Well, whatever. Let's not. Okay, I'm just saying that facetiously, but I understand their perspective. When you get one side of things, it's all, hey, isn't this great? And they're thinking, because it is all about sex. And like I said, it's such a weird thing to craft your identity around. Like I do not think my identity revolves around my heterosexuality. Like just that normal, boring part of my life that I'm just a man who likes a woman and am married to one. Like, that's not interesting at all. Is that interesting? Does that make me, should we throw a parade? It's just the most boring, mundane, normal thing of all. And then someone takes off on some weird, fetish, and they get a parade. No, I know they did a heterosexual pride parade, didn't they? But I think that's stupid. I mean, obviously, I know it's not stupid in the sense of, I know that why they did it was to provoke things. And, I think it's good to provoke, since we give them a chance. And I think this is right. And I stand by what I've felt for years. Let them live peaceably. But if they refuse to live peaceably and try to come for your children, then now we're going to have to do something about it. I don't mean by any means harm anyone, but there has to be some kind of lines drawn. You know what I mean? It's interesting because, everyone wants to control the public schools because that's where they indoctrinate children. And they want to teach them, there's people who want to control that and teach kids all kinds of sexuality. They're there to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. And also, they're supposed to be socialized. But that doesn't happen. School has a habit of anti-socializing people. This I believe very strongly. School is a generator of antisocial behaviors and antisocial individuals. Because tossing a child into this like Lord of the Flies, all the kids are the same age environment is incredibly stupid. As far as if you want to socialize children. Some will come out all right. Mostly through stepping over the faces of the other ones. Because there's no, and you can't hold them account. It's not their fault. They're all just children. But yeah, schools are why do you think we have school shootings? Particularly school shootings. Because the school is where the antisocial behavior is created. It's where the antisocial feelings are generated. The hatred. I'll tell you what. I never really learned to hate other people until I went to school. That's why I learned to hate human beings. If you disagree, you probably had a different experience. But you know what? There's a lot of kids. I'll tell you what, though. That kid who picks up his gun and starts blazing in the school, you think he loves people? Think the school socialized him? How come homeschool kids don't go running into schools with guns? Obviously there's a lot fewer and all that. Next thing we'll have the homeschool shooter, whatever. Not likely. There's a reason why the hatred is all pointed at that institution. And you think about it, it's a new idea in human development. It came about in the same time period when all our worst ideas came out. Like some of the worst ideas people have ever had were tried in the past 200 years. Authoritarianism, communism, fascism, eugenics, all in the early part of this century. The progressives were all about eugenics and sterilizing the Negroes and all that. That's what they were that was the mentality. All these crappy ideas got tried out. And public school, that one too. I forgot to add that. We had genocide, public schools, and all kinds of other stuff. That's what the 19th and 20th centuries have brought us. Not the public school. I don't object to the idea of a public institution of schooling, but the way we do schooling, in this factory style, Prussian style, German style, make the people into compliant cogs for the state's machinery. And you see in this past year, as people all prove themselves to be just, what is the word I want to use for it? Well, whatever. Just basically that. They're just cogs in the government machinery doing what they're told. A compliant citizenry that knows its masters. You send your children for 12 years of their life to learn obedience to authority. Not that there isn't a place for obedience and to authority, even, of course, to just authority. But but it's blind obedience to authority. And you do what your teachers say, regardless of what they say. Now, obviously, they don't usually go off the rails very much, but educationally, they do a bit. And like I said, it's like, I teach my kids, when you see a line, don't get in it. Find out why the line is there before you just jump in line. I don't know how many times I would go to like a wrestling tournament, I'd see a big line, I'm like, let's go. Walk right past it. And one time I found out people were literally lined up behind a group of people who were talking. And there was nothing going on. But they had just lined up thinking that was the line to get in. And people were just milling around waiting for things to move. And the line just got longer and longer. The line to nowhere. Getting in line is like a metaphor for obedience to authority, to unjust authority. And that's what, line up, everyone. Put your numbers on and get into the boxcars. We're going to the gas chambers. That's what lining up gets you. Not that there isn't a place for line and taking turns and stuff. I teach my kids to take turns. But they should also be taught to question authority. School doesn't teach you, question your teacher. And then the children themselves, like I said, it's a weird way to socialize a child. I've never encountered, in my entire life, school prepares you not for life. In my entire life, I have never, ever been in a situation where I was with all these people my own age. I almost don't know anybody the same age as me. I don't have any friends that are the class of 92. I mean, I have old friends from school. A couple I still keep contact with, but the people I associate with now are not my age. But in school, I would never have had anything to do with them. Because they would have been like 3-4 years older, 2-3 years younger, whatever. 10 years younger, whatever. They're all not in my class. Well, I went off and I lost everything. As far as I didn't finish the chapter. And time's up. So we'll finish the chapter on Monday. We'll pick it up at verse 19. We got to pick it up at verse 18. Because we didn't even talk about 18. Yeah, we'll just pick it up at verse 18. But, the government officials, officers, exactors, taxers, and all that stuff, is, I guess I got off on school somehow. I don't remember. But it's similar to me, that God will make it all right, all righteous, and peaceful. You know, he'll make your officers peace, because they could be the exact opposite. They could be cruel, violent, and also unrighteous. So we'll pick it up in verse 18 on Monday. Until then, thanks for joining me. We'll be back again.
Who is this that cometh from Edom? Garments from Bozrah. This that is glorious in his apparel, conquering in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fats? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be splattered.